Hey everyone, welcome back to Revenge Reloaded. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my corner office overlooking downtown Chicago. Dad's name appeared on my screen, and for a brief moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. Our relationship had been strained for years, reduced to obligatory holiday texts and the occasional awkward lunch. But I answered anyway. "Emma, we need to talk about the wedding," he said, skipping any greeting. I set down my pen. "What about it?" "Carol and I have been discussing the guest list." He paused and I could hear the hesitation in his voice, the kind that comes before delivering news you know will hurt. Her business associates are flying in from all over the country. Very important people in the marketing world. CEOs, creative directors, the kind of crowd that. Dad trailed off. "Just say it. We think it would be best if you didn't attend. Carol wants to keep things classy, sophisticated. Her friends are all very successful, and you're still." He trailed off again. "Still what?" "You know what I mean, Emma. You're 32 and you rent an apartment. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You work some vague government job that you can never really explain. Carol's friends, her colleagues, they're going to wonder why my daughter isn't more accomplished." The words hung in the air like poison. I'd heard variations of this my entire adult life. After Mom died when I was 19, Dad had remarried within 2 years to a woman named Patricia, who made it abundantly clear that I was a disappointment. That marriage lasted 5 years before ending in a bitter divorce. Now at 61, he'd found Carol, 15 years his junior, ambitious, image-obsessed, and apparently embarrassed by my existence. "You're uninviting me from your wedding because your fiancée thinks I'll make her look bad," I said flatly. "Don't be dramatic. We're just trying to maintain a certain standard. You understand how important this is for Carol's career. Her business is everything to her. This wedding is essentially a networking event. Having you there with your situation, it would raise questions." "I understand perfectly, Dad." "Good. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. You've always been the understanding one, not like your brother would have been. My brother, the golden child who died in a car accident at 24, leaving Dad to pour all his disappointed expectations onto me, the son who could do no wrong even in death." "Is there anything else?" I asked. "No, that's it. We'll catch up after the honeymoon. Maybe we can do lunch or something." "Dad, congratulations on the wedding." I hung up without waiting for his response. For a long moment, I sat in silence, staring at my phone. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up my encrypted email. My fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. To Marcus Chin at silverocapital.com. Subject: Immediate action required. Prestige Marketing Group. Marcus, effective immediately withdraw all capital from Prestige Marketing Group. Dissolve the partnership, trigger the exit clauses, and ensure all funds are returned to our holding company within 48 hours. I want every dollar out. No grace period. No negotiations. Emma. I hit send and closed my laptop. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Marcus Chin, my investment manager and one of the few people who knew the full scope of my financial portfolio. "Emma, I just got your email. Are you sure about this? That's $2.7 million in active capital. Prestige Marketing was showing strong growth metrics. I'm sure this will effectively collapse their expansion plans. They're leveraged pretty heavily against our backing. Without it, they'll have to, I know what it will do, Marcus. Execute the withdrawal." There was a pause. Marcus had been managing my investments for 8 years. He knew better than to question my decisions. "Consider it done. The paperwork will be filed within the hour. They'll receive notification by end of business day." "Thank you, Marcus." I set my phone down and returned to my quarterly reports as if nothing had happened. The story of how I became wealthy enough to casually withdraw $2.7 million isn't particularly dramatic. There was no lottery win, no inheritance from a distant relative, no lucky crypto investment. It was simply a matter of being in the right place at the right time with the right skills. After Mom died, I'd thrown myself into my studies, computer science and applied mathematics at MIT, paid for by scholarships and Mom's modest life insurance policy. Dad had been too consumed with his new wife Patricia to pay much attention to my academic achievements. He certainly didn't notice when I graduated summa cum laude or when I was recruited by a specialized government contractor. The work was classified, even now. I can't discuss the specifics, but I can say that I became very, very good at identifying patterns in complex data systems. And I can say that the government pays extremely well for certain types of expertise, especially when that expertise helps prevent rather large and expensive problems. By 25 I was earning more than most senior executives. By 28 I'd saved enough to start making strategic investments through a network of holding companies and trusts. By 30, my portfolio was worth $47 million. Now, at 32, I was worth somewhere north of $180 million. I still rented my apartment because I liked the building and saw no reason to deal with property maintenance. I still drove my Honda because it was reliable and I had no desire to attract attention. I still worked my government job because I found the work intellectually satisfying and it gave me purpose beyond simply accumulating wealth. My family knew none of this. To Dad, I was still Emma, the disappointment. Emma who never quite measured up to Jason's memory. Emma who worked some boring government desk job and would probably never amount to much. I'd considered telling him the truth 1,000 times. But after Patricia, after watching him choose a new wife's comfort over his own daughter's feelings, I decided that some things were better kept private. I wasn't hiding my success out of shame. I was hiding it as a test. Would Dad love me for who I was, or would he only value me for what I had? With Carol, I'd gotten my answer. 3 years ago, when Dad had started dating her, he'd been practically giddy. Carol was successful, attractive, ambitious, everything Patricia hadn't been. He'd introduced us at an uncomfortable dinner where Carol had spent most of the evening name-dropping her clients and discussing her company's growth trajectory. "We're really at a pivotal moment," she'd said, swirling her wine. "If we could just secure the right investor, someone willing to commit real capital, we could expand into 3 new markets within a year." She'd looked at me expectantly, as if I might suddenly produce a wealthy friend from my purse. "That sounds exciting," I'd said blandly. Dad had jumped in. "Emma, you work in government contracting, right? Do you ever meet people with money? The kind who might be interested in investing?" I'd taken a sip of water. "I might know someone." That someone, of course, was me. Through one of my holding companies, I had structured a $2.7 million investment in Prestige Marketing Group. The terms were favorable to Carol, generous, even, low interest, flexible repayment terms, minimal oversight requirements. Dad had been thrilled when I told him I'd found an investor willing to back Carol's expansion. He'd hugged me for the first time in years. Carol had been effusive in her gratitude, though she'd never bothered to ask too many questions about where the money came from. The investment had been profitable. Carol was talented at what she did, even if she was insufferable as a person. Prestige Marketing had grown substantially over the past 3 years, opening offices in 2 new cities and doubling their client roster. But business is business, and family is family. And sometimes those 2 things can't coexist. The first domino fell at 4:47 p.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Emma, did you tell Carol's investor something? She just got a call and she's losing her mind." I didn't respond. At 5:15 p.m., another text, "This isn't funny. Carol's business is in serious trouble. Her backer is pulling out. Do you know anything about this?" I muted his conversation thread. At 6:30 p.m., my office phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Emma Anderson. A woman's voice, tight with barely controlled panic. "This is Carol Westfield, your father's fiancée. We need to talk." "About what?" "Don't play games with me. My CFO just received notice that our primary investor is withdrawing $2.7 million in active capital. Effective immediately. We're scrambling to understand how this happened and who approved this. Your father seems to think you might know something about it. I leaned back in my chair, watching the sun set over Chicago's skyline. Why would I know anything about your business arrangements, Carol? Because you were the one who found the investor 3 years ago. You connected us. You have to know who they are. I knew someone who was interested in investing. That's all. That's all? Her voice rose sharply. That's all? Do you have any idea what you've done? This withdrawal will torpedo our expansion. We've already committed to new office leases, hired staff, signed client contracts based on having this capital available. Without it, we're going to. She stopped abruptly. I need you to contact this investor. Tell them there's been a mistake. Tell them we'll renegotiate terms if necessary. I don't think they're interested in negotiations. You don't think? Emma, this is my company. We're talking about my life's work. You need to fix this. I don't need to do anything, Carol. Silence stretched between us. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. This is about the wedding, isn't it? You're doing this because we uninvited you. That's an interesting theory. You petty, vindictive little, she caught herself. Your father was right about you. He said you never accomplished anything, and now I see why. You tear other people down because you can't build anything yourself. I smiled though she couldn't see it. Is there anything else, Carol? You're going to regret this. When my lawyer finds out who this investor is, when we trace these funds, you're going to wish you'd never. I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing again. Dad's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then Carol's number. Voicemail. Dad again. Voicemail. Finally, I turned off my phone, packed up my briefcase, and went home. The voicemails piled up overnight. By morning, I had 17 messages. I listened to them over coffee in my apartment, each one more desperate than the last. Dad's first message, Emma, please call me back. Carol is beside herself. Whatever's happening with her investor, we need to figure this out. She's talking about postponing the wedding. His third message, I don't understand what's going on. Carol's lawyer says the investment was structured through something called Silver Oak Capital Management. That name means nothing to me. Emma, if you know these people, please help us. His seventh message, Carol showed me the withdrawal notice. It's signed by someone named Marcus Chin. Do you know him? Emma, please. I'm begging you. This wedding is in 3 weeks. Carol's company is falling apart. I need you to help fix this. His 15th message, timestamped at 2:47 a.m. I know you're angry about the wedding invitation. I understand, but this is bigger than that. Carol's worked her entire adult life to build this company. You can't let it collapse because of a family disagreement. That's not who you are. I deleted all the messages and went to work. The next 2 days passed in a blur of increasingly frantic contact attempts. Dad showed up at my apartment building, but the doorman turned him away when I instructed him I wasn't receiving visitors. Carol tried to reach me through my work email, which I blocked. Dad's sister, my Aunt Michelle, called to lecture me about family loyalty. I don't know what's going on between you and your father, she said. But Carol is collateral damage here. Her business doesn't deserve to be destroyed because of a family spat. I agree, I said. Businesses shouldn't be destroyed because of family issues. People shouldn't be uninvited from weddings because they're considered an embarrassment either. Wait, they uninvited you from the wedding? Ask Dad about it. I hung up. By day 4, the story had apparently spread through the family. My phone lit up with calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all wanting to know what had happened and why I was sabotaging Carol's business. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, none of them had cared about my life, my accomplishments, or my feelings. Now, suddenly, I was important enough to warrant family-wide intervention. On day 5, everything changed. I was in a meeting with my government team when my personal cell phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Your father and Carol just showed up at the Silver Oak offices. Security has them in the lobby. They're demanding to meet with the principal investor in Prestige Marketing Group. What do you want me to do? I excused myself from the meeting and called him. How did they find the office? The withdrawal notice had our corporate address. They hired a private investigator who tracked the LLC structure. They're threatening legal action if we don't meet with them. I checked my watch. 2:30 p.m., I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't engage until I arrive. You're coming here? Time to end this, Marcus. I grabbed my briefcase and left the building. Silver Oak Capital Management occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower in Chicago's financial district. The offices were understated but elegant, dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Lake Michigan. It was the kind of place that whispered money rather than shouting it. When I stepped off the elevator, I could hear Carol's voice echoing through the marble lobby. This is absurd. You can't just refuse to meet with us. We have a contractual relationship with your firm. We have rights. The security guard stood impassively by the reception desk. Ma'am, as I've explained, no one from our investment team is available without an appointment. Then get us an appointment. Today. Right now. Dad stood beside her, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen him. He wore a suit that was slightly rumpled and his tie was askew. He noticed me before Carol did. Emma, he blinked, confused. What are you doing here? Carol spun around. Did you follow us? How did you? I work here, I said simply. The lobby went silent. You work here? Dad repeated slowly. At an investment firm? Not exactly. I turned to the security guard. Thank you, David. I'll take it from here. I walked past them toward the secured door that led to the main offices. I pressed my palm against the biometric scanner and the lock disengaged with a soft click. Emma, wait, Dad said. I don't understand. What is this place? Why are you? I held the door open. Would you like to come inside and talk, or would you prefer to continue shouting in the lobby? They followed me through the door, down a hallway lined with offices, to the corner suite at the end. The nameplate beside the door read, Emma J. Anderson, Principal Partner. Carol saw it first. Her face went white. That can't be. I unlocked the door and gestured for them to enter. My office was larger than my apartment. One wall was entirely glass, offering an unobstructed view of the Chicago skyline and Lake Michigan beyond. The other walls held framed credentials, my MIT degrees, several commendations from government agencies, with portions redacted for security classification, and a Forbes 30 Under 30 feature from 2 years ago that Dad had apparently never seen. On my desk sat a single photograph, Mom smiling from the year before she died. Dad stood in the doorway, staring. Emma. I don't understand. Sit down, Dad. You too, Carol. They sank into the chairs across from my desk like sleepwalkers. I remained standing, silhouetted against the window. 3 years ago, I began. Dad mentioned that Carol needed an investor for her business expansion. I agreed to help, through this firm, through a structure of LLCs and holding companies. I personally invested $2.7 million in Prestige Marketing Group. Carol's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The terms were generous, minimal interest, flexible repayment, almost no operational oversight. I wanted the business to succeed. I wanted you to be happy, Dad. You? He shook his head. But how? You're a government employee. You drive a Honda. You rent an apartment. Where would you get $2.7 million? I've been doing specialized consulting work since I was 23. My particular skills are valuable to certain agencies. Very valuable. Over the years, I invested wisely. This firm manages my portfolio, along with several others. Current assets under management, approximately $180 million. My personal net worth is in the same range. The silence that followed was absolute. Carol found her voice first. You're lying. This is some kind of scam. You're not worth $180 million. That's impossible. I pulled open a desk drawer and removed a leather portfolio. From it, I extracted several documents and laid them on the desk: bank statements from 3 different institutions, investment summaries, property holdings, yes, plural, I own 4 properties across 3 states that I rent out, stock portfolios, government contract summaries, redacted for classification but showing payment amounts. Dad reached for the papers with a shaking hand. His eyes moved across the numbers, disbelieving. This is real, he whispered. This is actually real. It's real, Dad. But why didn't you ever tell me? Because I wanted to know if you'd love me for who I was, not what I had. I met his eyes. And I got my answer on Tuesday when you called to uninvite me from your wedding. The words landed like a physical blow. Dad flinched. Emma, I didn't mean it like that. You said Carol wanted to keep things classy, that her business friends would wonder why your daughter wasn't more accomplished. You said I'd raise questions because of my situation. I was trying to protect Carol's reputation. Her business was everything. Her business that I was funding. My voice remained calm, but each word was precise, surgical. The business that wouldn't exist in its current form without my money. The expansion into Atlanta and Denver, my capital. The new office renovations, my capital. The marketing campaign that landed 3 Fortune 500 clients, my capital. Carol had gone from white to gray. You can't pull that investment. We have a contract. We have rights. I picked up another document from my desk. Actually, according to Section 14.3 of our investment agreement, I can withdraw funding immediately if certain conditions are met. Specifically, if there's a material change in the business relationship or if I determine that continued investment no longer aligns with my portfolio strategy. That's a technicality, Carol snapped. No court would, every court would uphold it. My lawyers wrote that contract. Your lawyers signed it. You were so excited to get the funding that you barely read the terms. Dad stood up abruptly. Emma, please. Let's talk about this rationally. The wedding invitation, we can change that. You can come. Of course you can come. I don't want to come anymore, Dad. Then what do you want? Money? We can pay you back the investment over time. We'll restructure I don't want your money. I walked to the window, looking out over the city. I wanted a father who valued me. I wanted to be invited to his wedding, not because I'm secretly wealthy, but because I'm his daughter. I wanted to matter. You do matter, Dad's voice cracked. Emma, you've always mattered. Did I? I turned to face him. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you asked about my life, my work, my happiness? You only called when you needed something. When Carol needed an investor. When you wanted advice on Patricia's divorce settlement. When you needed someone to listen to your problems. That's not fair. I've been dealing with a lot. The divorce, rebuilding my life, finding Carol, and I've been building an empire alone. The words came out harder than I intended. Do you know what it's like to achieve something remarkable and have no one to share it with? To make your first million and realize that telling your only living parent would just make them see you differently, not better, just differently? You should have told me, Dad said quietly. I'm your father. I deserve to know. Did you? Would it have changed anything? Would you have suddenly become interested in my life? Or would you just have started asking for money? The question hung in the air unanswered. Carol stood up, her composure finally shattering. This is insane. You're punishing an entire business, people who depend on their jobs, because your feelings were hurt. I'm withdrawing my investment from a business whose owner publicly considers me an embarrassment. That's not punishment. That's just good business sense. You're destroying me. Do you understand that? Without this capital, I'll have to lay off 30 people. I'll have to cancel contracts. My reputation in the industry will be ruined. Your reputation was more important than my feelings when you decided I wasn't classy enough for your wedding, I said calmly. I'm simply applying the same logic. Emma, please, Dad stepped toward me. I know I've been a terrible father. I know I've let you down more times than I can count, but don't do this to Carol. She doesn't deserve this. Did I deserve to be uninvited from my father's wedding? No. No, you didn't. You deserved better. You've always deserved better, and I failed you. Tears were running down his face now. After your mom died, I fell apart. I know I did. I was so lost in my own grief that I forgot you were grieving too. And then Patricia and all the drama with that marriage, and I let you slip away. I let years pass without really seeing you. And now you see me because I have money. Now I see you because I'm finally looking, really looking. And what I see is an incredible woman who accomplished everything on her own, without any help from me. I see someone strong and brilliant and successful, and I realize that I had nothing to do with any of it. You did this yourself, Emma. And instead of being proud, instead of celebrating you, He broke down completely. I told you not to come to my wedding. I stood very still, watching my father cry. Somewhere inside me, something shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but something softer than the cold anger I'd been carrying. The money is withdrawn, I said quietly. That decision stands. But Carol, I'll give you 30 days to find alternative funding. I'll have Marcus draw up a bridge loan with reasonable terms to cover your immediate obligations. After 30 days, you're on your own. Carol sagged with relief. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for your employees who don't deserve to suffer because of this situation. I turned to Dad. As for the wedding, I meant what I said. I won't be attending. I understand. He wiped his eyes. Emma, I know I can't fix everything with one conversation, but I want to try. I want to be a real father to you, if you'll let me. That's going to take time, Dad. A lot of time. I know. I'll wait as long as it takes. They left my office 20 minutes later with a promissory note for a bridge loan and the name of 3 potential alternative investors Marcus had identified. Carol's business would survive, though it would take her years to rebuild to the same growth trajectory. The wedding was postponed. Dad called it off entirely 2 weeks later. It didn't feel right, he told me in a voicemail. Getting married while my relationship with my daughter is broken. Carol understood. We're still engaged, but we're waiting, taking time to figure things out. Aunt Michelle called to apologize. Apparently, Dad had told the whole family what happened. Several other relatives reached out, some apologetic, some just curious about my success. I ignored most of them. 3 months later, Dad started showing up outside my apartment building every Sunday morning with coffee and bagels. He never came up, never pushed. He just stood in the lobby until I came down, handed me a coffee, and asked if I wanted to take a walk. The first 2 Sundays, I took the coffee and went back upstairs without a word. The 3rd Sunday, I walked with him for 10 minutes. On the 4th Sunday, we walked for half an hour and talked about Mom, really talked, for the first time since she died. By the 6th Sunday, it became a routine. It's been 8 months now. Dad and I have coffee every Sunday. We talk about work. He finally understands what I do, or at least as much as I can tell him, given the classifications. We talk about Mom and Jason and all the years we lost. We talk about Carol, who broke off their engagement after realizing that Dad's priorities had shifted. She said I was choosing you over her, Dad told me one Sunday, and she was right. I was. I should have chosen you 13 years ago. We're not fixed. 13 years of distance and disappointment can't be healed in 8 months, but we're trying. That's something. Last week, Dad asked if I'd have dinner with him on what would have been Mom's birthday. We went to her favorite restaurant, the one that closed down years ago and reopened under new ownership. We ordered her favorite dish and told stories and laughed and cried. At the end of the night, as we stood outside the restaurant, Dad hugged me, a real hug, tight and long, the kind I hadn't gotten since I was a child. "I'm so proud of you, Emma," he whispered. "Your mom would be so proud." "I'm sorry it took me so long to say that." I hugged him back. "I know, Dad. I know. I still rent my apartment. I still drive my Honda. I still work my government job. But now when Dad calls, it's not because he needs something. It's just to talk, to ask about my day, to tell me about his." Last month, he asked if I'd be willing to meet someone he'd started seeing. Her name is Linda. She's a retired teacher, no business empire, no social climbing, just a kind woman who makes him laugh. "I'd like you to meet her. Only if you're comfortable." I met Linda last week. She's nothing like Patricia or Carol. She asked about my work, listened when I answered, and didn't once treat me like a disappointment or an ATM. When Dad mentioned I'd gone to MIT, she smiled and said, "You must have gotten your intelligence from your mother. Your dad is brilliant in his own way, but he couldn't program a microwave." Dad laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard since before Mom died. I'm still learning to trust him again. Some wounds take years to heal, and some scars never fully fade. But every Sunday morning when I see him waiting in my lobby with coffee and that hopeful expression on his face, I remember that people can change. Sometimes they just need the right motivation. Thanks so much for watching. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next story.